further ado, I'd like to welcome Manzullo.
First order of business, my beautiful wife, Frida. Frida? It is a real joy to be here this evening. Those of you who have taken a look at the new congressional map wondered what was in the mind of the state legislators to draw a congressional district that goes from Indiana to Wisconsin. But they decided they wanted to do that. And you take a look at that map, the people that I represented for the past several years comprise 44% of the population of the new 16th congressional district. My opponent, 30.8% of the people he represented are now in the 16th congressional district. 25% are in the congressional district, with a seat now held by Jesse Jackson. So it's a real joy to be here this evening. Let me just take a couple of minutes to tell you about who we are. I'm not the stranger from the north. Some people say, there's this guy comes from the north, expect to have a woolly fur, big hat on there, the pack horse behind him. I was born in Rockford, Illinois. My dad had a grocery store, and we lived in one room above that grocery store for 5 years. And then he bought the old Rosecrans Children's Home in New Milford, just south of Rockford. Turned that into an Italian restaurant, and my family operated that for 41 years. I worked my way through college and law school, working in the family restaurant, and also I was the day manager of a little drive-in restaurant next to it when I was 15 years old. So it's always been a real joy to grow up in small business. I ended up having the opportunity to go to Marquette University Law School and establish a practice in the town of Oregon, Illinois, Ogle County. My colleagues at Marquette were looking for the big firms, trying to establish a name for themselves, trying to go in there and make all the big dollars and everything like that. My role model was Atticus Finch. And Atticus Finch decided he wanted to be a small-town lawyer, and he's the one who came up with the great saying, there's one thing a majority can't do, and that is to determine a man's conscience. And so I practiced law in Ogle County. Frida and I got married. We raised beef cattle for several years. It wasn't a large group of cattle, large herd. We buy about 25 or 30 in the spring, fatten them up, hopefully, and then sell them in the fall, make a little bit of money. But I'm glad I had a day job. And there are a lot of farmers here that know you better have a day job when you have an operation that's small. But it taught me a lot about farming, about agriculture, because when I practiced law, I practiced a lot of agricultural law, did a lot of estate planning, did probate, saw the horrible impact of death taxes. One family in particular had to sell half their farm to pay the death tax. And I thought at that time, if there's anything I could ever do to help out the people in this country, especially the farmers who have to have so much inventory, so much equipment, just to eke out a half-decent living, then I'm going to do that. And so the opportunity came. And I had been representing farmers. I was representing farmers with the cattle issues before the EPA years ago. Runoff issues. And the opportunity came to run for Congress in 1990. I ran. I was promptly sued by my own party to get off the ballot. They said, Mr. Manzullo, you didn't pay your dues. I said, what does that mean? So, well, you run for alderman, and then you run for the county board, and then you run for the state representative, then you run for the Senate. I said, I don't see that in the Constitution. I said, how about a person with energy who has a vision for America, who has 3 little kids, and he's concerned that the government continues to grow and to expand exponentially to the point where the bigger government we have, the less freedoms those kids have. How about that? Isn't that good enough to run for Congress? And we came in a little bit short in that first primary, but 47%, not bad for somebody who never run for office before. 2 years later, my wife encouraged me to run. She said, you got to do it, Don. And 2 years later, we took on a person who had been in the state senate for a long time. It was considered his congressional district. We won that race by 57% on St. Patrick's Day in 1992. There were no two people more surprised than Cleveland. And then in the fall, we went on to retire the Democrat who held that seat by an equal amount of 57%. And I can tell you this. I have the same fervor and the same desire and the same goals and the same principles today, running in this brand new congressional district, than I did when I first threw my head into the ring, and that is the fact that government does not know best. It's the people who understand what's going on. And as Thomas Jefferson said, liberties are a gift of God. And a nation that forgets the liberties are a gift from God will be the nation to lose those liberties. And so I went to Congress, and on the way there, our car broke down. I forget. Oh, this was Mr. and Mrs. Smith and the three little Smiths on the way. It broke down on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And there we were at 2 o'clock in the morning. There were two guys sitting on the rail on the freeway. I came over and they helped us get that car going. Where'd they come from at 2 o'clock in the morning? And so we made our way into Washington and decided we had given up a very great life. How many people have the opportunity to practice law in a tiny town?